Migrants at the jungle camp in Calais set tents and shelters on fire as the evacuation of the camp is complete. A tireless education advocate helps Nigerian children stay in school. And the latest yoga trend has fans swinging into shape. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Well, tonight we begin with the end of the sprawling migrant camp called the Jungle in Calais, France. French officials say they have achieved their goal, and the processing center that is dispersing people across the country will be closed by the end of Wednesday. The regional head of Calais says the last of the 6,000 migrants in the camp will leave the coastal shanty town within hours. Officials say 4 Afghan migrants were arrested overnight for setting structures in the camp on fire, inspiring others to do the same in a long night of raging fires. Local opposition to the squalid and unsanitary camp, along with criticism from right-wing politicians, triggered the French government into launching the clearing operation, which began on Monday. Most of the migrants had come to Calais hoping to cross the short stretch of sea to Britain by trying to leap on trucks and trains or walk through the Channel Tunnel. In East Africa, a group loyal to the Islamic State seized a small port town Wednesday in Somalia's semi-autonomous Puntland region, a move officials say gives it control of a town for the first time since it emerged as a force a year ago. The group, a rival to the larger Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab, seized Kandala port after a brief fight with local security forces. African peacekeepers are not deployed in Puntland, in the eastern tip of the Horn of Africa. Now, the Puntland-appointed chairman of the town, Jama Mohammed Mumin, has confirmed to VOA that the town was seized by the Islamic State. Well, for more on the capture of the town of Kandala, I'm joined now by VOA's Mohammed Olad. Mohammed, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Vincent.
Yes. Now, first, just help us understand, who are these people? What is this group?
Well, these people emerged a year ago when they said publicly, or a year and a half ago, almost 2 years, when they said we are part of the new branch of ISIS in Somalia. Before they were members of Al-Shabaab, it's led by Sheikh Momin, who was the leader of Al-Shabaab militiamen in the mountainous area of Puntland area, and then they claimed they gave their allegiance to ISIS. And we remember when they were announcing that they are part of ISIS, they disputed with Al-Shabaab leaders. Al-Shabaab leaders were saying we don't want to break the allegiances we give to Al-Qaeda, and these guys wanted to go to ISIS, and that's why they went out of the main Al-Shabaab controlled lands in southern Somalia to this mountainous area close to the Red Sea in Puntland.
Now, we did mention that there was just a small fight. What is the size of the town, and how significant is it to Puntland?
Well, the town is basically a remote town in a mountainous area close to the Red Sea, where fishermen most of the people in the town are fishermen. And these guys want only to say that they are in control of one of the towns in Somalia, and this is the first time they announced publicly that they have taken control of a town. Strategically, the places will allow them, when they see a larger military forces from Puntland coming to them, they can simply run away through the sea to other areas in the east. And the reason they chose there is because they can survive before any other military force comes there and kicks them out.
Yes. Now, as far as we know, have they launched any attack before in Puntland?
Basically, they claimed several attacks in Puntland area, but nobody confirming they were behind it. And the tendencies of militants in Somalia are when something happens, nobody claims, they jump in and say, we did it.
Yes.
And that's what we have been seeing in Al-Shabaab control areas or in government control areas. When something happens, Al-Shabaab says, we did it.
Mm-hmm. Now, very quickly, what are the government officials in Puntland saying? What is the next move?
Well, these similar things happened last year when Al-Shabaab militants moved into Puntland area, the same coastal area, into towns. And Puntland regrouped themselves and just brought military hardware and kicked them out. So we're expecting the same thing to happen. But the significance of this is that ISIS militiamen claiming to be linked with ISIS are now having control of a small town in Somalia. And the reason is not because they can take control of there, but they want to say we are here. And the good example is that Al-Shabaab has been taking control of areas in southern Somalia when Ethiopian troops withdraw. So these guys say not only Al-Shabaab are active in Somalia, but also we are here, we can take control of a town.
We'll be watching developments
Thank you so much.
Mohammed, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, our thanks to viewers, Somali service reporter Mohammed Oland. Well, the Iraqi army, supported by the United States and others, is advancing on Mosul, a city that has been under Islamic State control for 2 years, serving as an important stronghold in the so-called Caliphate, headquartered in the Syrian city of Raqqa. If Mosul falls as expected, Raqqa would be targeted next. American journalist Joby Warwick is the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of a book on the terrorist group titled Black Flags, The Rise of ISIS. VOA's Sladit Zahok has more.
Under relentless fire from international and local forces in the past year, Islamic State has lost large swaths of land, influx of fighters and source of money. Despite odds, militants are putting a fierce fight to hold on to Mosul. Spreading terror among residents is an important weapon in that fight.
Human rights staff in Iraq have been informed that ISIL killed 15 civilians in a village called Safina, which is around 45 kilometers south of Mosul city, and threw their bodies in the river, apparently in an attempt to spread terror among the other residents. On the afternoon of 19th of October, that's last Wednesday, in the same village, ISIL reportedly tied 6 civilians to a vehicle by their hands and dragged them around the village.
Losing Mosul would inflict a serious but not a mortal blow to Islamic State, says Joby Warwick.
The idea is going to be with us for a long time, and battling that is going to take many years, I'm afraid.
Warwick blames the rise of Islamic State on the U.S. invasion of Iraq.
If we'd kept our focus on al-Qaeda and not gone chasing after Saddam Hussein, I think history would have taken a different turn and we would not be fighting this adversary right now.
He says Islamic State has redefined the idea of terrorism worldwide.
I think that IS has replaced al-Qaeda as the boogeyman, even for Americans. And in our popular culture, in our media, there's a great fixation on IS. And it's because they've managed to provoke in ways that al-Qaeda never did. These horrific images of beheadings and of executions and just to the atrocity they commit on a daily basis. It's really crept into the American psyche in a way that even al-Qaeda wasn't able to do.
Thousands of people have gone to the Middle East to fight for Islamic State. When the caliphate crumbles, many of them will return to their home countries. Warwick says the authorities would do well to separate those who renounce their terrorist ambitions and use them to counter the jihadist message spread by those who continue to believe in it. Sladit Zahok, VOA News, Washington.
Renewed violence has rocked the Central African Republic despite efforts by the new government to bring peace and reconciliation among the various ethnic groups and political factions. Africa 54 Esther Githu-Ewart has the details.
There was an exchange of fire on October 24th between the UN peacekeeping mission and armed gunmen in the capital Bangui as hundreds of protesters marched calling for the mission's departure. The mission, known as MINUSCA, was established in 2014 after the country was rocked by chaos in early 2013 when fighting broke out between mostly Muslim Seleka rebels and anti-Balaka Christian militias. Didier Fabrice Balodeng, an internet technology engineer, was among the protesters.
We have seen that their mission has no use and it's just better that they leave.
Civil society groups joined critics of the UN mission Monday, saying they are not doing enough to protect civilians. The groups called for a general strike to pressure the mission to leave the country. Speaking to the UN Security Council members, Avela de Souza, the UN Under-Secretary General for Peacekeeping Operations, says the situation in the Central African Republic remains fragile.
Recent events demonstrate that the situation remains fragile and spoilers are still active on both sides. Central African institutions must also increase their efforts to stop attacks against humanitarian actors and help create conditions for the return of refugees and displaced persons.
Intercommunal and interreligious strife remains rife in the country. President Faustin Touadera is calling for peace and reconciliation following an attack on refugees in Kagabandoro, a town north of the country, in which 30 people were killed and more than 50 wounded. Armed Seleka militia groups stabbed and hacked the refugees to death, saying they were avenging the recent killing of 4 young Muslims in the town. President Touadera toured the displacement camp.
Our message is quite simple. It is forgiveness, reconciliation, and social cohesion. They are really the only things that will allow us to get out of this situation. There is no other solution.
Inside the camp, refugee Angel Bari expressed her frustration.
They killed us and stole from us and took all our belongings. Look where we are right now. We sleep outside. It's not good. We sleep on the ground. There are mosquitoes, and we sleep in the mud. We are suffering. We have no clothes. It's like we are worthless. It is as if we are strangers on our own soul.
Thousands of people have been killed in the 3-year-long political crisis in the Central African Republic, and more than 2.3 million people are still in dire need of humanitarian assistance. Esther Gidhu-Ewart, VOA News, Washington.
Well, Gambia is the third African country to announce that it will withdraw from the International Criminal Court. Now, the nation's information minister, Sheriff Bojang, made the announcement on Tuesday while accusing the ICC of ignoring war crimes of Western nations. Gambia alleges that the ICC is racist and unfairly targets Africans for prosecution. Now, all but one of the 10 investigations launched so far by the International Criminal Court has taken place in African countries, leading some in Gambia to believe it was ignoring crimes in other countries. Earlier this week, Gambian President Yahya Jammeh asked the court to investigate African migrant deaths in the Mediterranean Sea and bring charges against the European Union. But the government says the ICC has not responded. 2 other African nations, Burundi and South Africa, announced their withdrawal from the court earlier this month. Well, as the November 8th election nears, Democrat Hillary Clinton and Republican Donald Trump are focused on a handful of so-called battleground states that will determine who will be the next president of the United States. The candidate who wins the popular vote in a given state is awarded that state's electoral votes. VOA's national correspondent Jim Malone reports on the fight for swing states.
Donald J. Trump.
In the final days of the campaign, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are frequent visitors to the same handful of states, whether it's Trump in Ohio and New Hampshire or Clinton in Florida and Nevada. For several years now, the United States has been sharply divided politically in presidential elections, with many states leaning either Republican, shown in red, or Democratic, shown in blue. Political expert Stephen Wayne.
In many states, one party has a very big lead, and there's no sense in spending a lot of resources at the presidential level in that state.
That leaves about a dozen so-called battleground or swing states where the presidential candidates spend most of their time, says expert Jeremy Mayer.
In the modern presidential campaign, you run campaigns only in about 12 states. The list can change from year to year, although in the last 3 election cycles, it's fairly stable.
The swing states that get the most attention include large states like Florida and Ohio, as well as smaller ones like North Carolina, Nevada, and New Hampshire. Since the 1992 election won by Bill Clinton, Democrats have generally had more success in winning key swing states. And that makes it challenging for Trump this year, says analyst Austin Hart.
He's got to win voters in Florida, Ohio, perhaps Colorado and Nevada. He's got to shore up things in Pennsylvania if he can. So he has a heavy load in front of him.
Folks, we're run by people that are not smart people.
In the final days of the campaign, candidates target a relatively small group of voters in a handful of states, says expert Jennifer Lawless.
The question is now that sliver of independence. But it's not only the sliver of independence, it's smaller than that. It's the sliver of independents who live in battleground states. So we're talking about a very, very small percentage of the population.
Polls show Clinton leading nationally and in several key battleground states, though Trump remains competitive in a few key states like Ohio, Florida, and North Carolina. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Well, coming up, how a Nigerian activist is helping thousands of children gain access to quality instruction. Stay with us.
Green Beat for a healthier planet.
Sustainable, inexpensive, and very, very cool. That's the new living quarters for university students in Copenhagen, where architect Bjorka Ingels says he's built a lot of amenities into a small footprint.
You have direct access to swimming in the clean harbor water of Copenhagen. You have a shared roof terrace. You have a solar roof. You have a green roof.
The dorm rooms are made from old shipping containers that sit on top of a concrete pontoon in the harbor. And says Urban Rigger CEO Kim Laudrup, the dormitories were made with sustainability in mind.
Because we're using Hanwha-Q-cell solar panels. We're using the Grundfos and the Danfoss systems for the heating and the pumps. The fact that it's floating and is in used second-hand containers makes it pretty special.
But for students living in one of the world's most expensive cities, what really makes it special is the cost of rent, only a little more than $700 a month. I'm Rebecca Ward for VOA's Green Beat.
Welcome back. Now, in northern Nigeria, children brave violence every day just to get to school. The average girl stops attending class at the age of 9, but one woman is working to give Nigeria's girls the chance to learn and ensure that children are getting a quality education. She spoke to Africa 54's Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick, who joins us now with the rest of the story. Haiti?
Vincent, Rabia Eshak is the Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology in northern Nigeria's Jigawa state. She has a message for her country and the rest of Africa. If you want to spur innovation and economic growth in your country, you must equip young people with the right skills to unlock their potential.
Nigeria has more children out of school than any other place in the world. The United Nations estimates that more than 10 million Nigerian children are not receiving a formal education. Rabia Eshak says she has seen firsthand how girls have been disappearing from the classroom.
Poverty is a very grinding, a factor that stops girls from going to school because they have to be used for labor, and sometimes also girls, get married early and they don't get to go to school. We all know about the Chibok girls that were taken away from schools, and that was a demotivator for many girls to go to school, for many parents to send their kids to school, especially in the insurgency-ravaged areas.
It wasn't until she sent her own daughter to school that Eshak noticed something equally worrying.
Even the few girls that actually get to school, they don't get the quality education that I got. When I saw that my girl was not learning, I knew that then other girls were not learning. And of course other boys too. But I felt that if the indices show that, less and less girls are coming out of school, then I believe that there is something wrong and something needs to be done.
Eshak began working to improve the standard of education in northern Nigeria. She established 2 schools and set up 5 campuses of a polytechnic institute to teach young people, especially girls, the skills they needed to become self-employed when they grow up.
I started a project that targeted girls only, which I call the Girls Advancement Project, and I worked in very rural communities with young girls who weren't in school at all, but who needed to learn to read, write, and some basic skills, some basic life skills.
Eshak led the largest education project in Africa, reaching about 18 million Nigerians and inspiring the government to fund the renovation of hundreds of schools.
Her story is featured in a new book about women creating positive change around the world. Eshak says it's vital that education is treated as a development priority across Africa.
Current leadership on the continent is not focused on any clear agenda for development. I don't see the agenda for development in Africa. I honestly don't. How do you develop your people? How do you release the potentials among your people? And look at what is happening. Youth unemployment everywhere on the continent. Huge numbers of young people, most of them unskilled. What are we teaching in our schools? Are we really teaching our kids to live in the 21st century? Or are we just putting them through the system and then getting them out and then let them all sit at home?
Eshak says the relationship between education and sustainable development is critical because of Africa's youth bulge. The number of young people growing up and entering the workforce in Africa has the potential to create either progress or problems.
The continent is the next world, I believe, We have all the potential, we have everything, we have the human capital, but it has to be good human capital. It cannot just be people. It has to be productive people, people that have a purpose to live. What would we want to get out of our people? What do we want to get out of our young people especially? Because they are the future, and we need to be working on the future. We can't just leave it to chance.
You know the saying, it takes a village to raise a child? Well, Rabia Eshak says Africa needs a continent-wide commitment to education and skills training. She says Africa's development and progress depends on it. Vincent?
Very important. Thanks, Heidi. Now, job opportunities are limited for university graduates in Kenya, so some have been creating their own. Mohammed Yusuf in Nairobi has the story of one enterprising graduate who transformed an old mattress into a growing business.
Lilian Wairimu started this work 4 years ago, and the customers from her custom-made beanbag chairs keep coming in ever-increasing numbers. The idea came to her when she saw an old mattress under her bed. Then came the internet search and the online tutorial that changed her life.
I'm happy to see what began as a desperate means for me to survive has become a living room sensation for the many clients who come to me. I am very happy, and with the many ideas that I also have in my mind, I want to pray for more success in the future. So I'm proud of the business.
But it hasn't been easy. Like many young entrepreneurs in Africa, she didn't have a way to get startup capital. It took her several months to save the $50 she needed to make her first chair. Now she sells her products for $100 to $140, depending on the size. A few companies have placed orders. Individual clients contact her through Facebook from as far away as Rwanda. Word of mouth brings other customers in Nairobi.
I went to her house and I saw a very comfortable thing that didn't look like a chair. It was not a chair. It was not a poof. So I got curious. And she told me to search her Facebook page, and that's why I'm here today.
It takes at least 6 days to make each item.
I've also learned to maximize on quality and not to compromise on that, because the client gets, and also I get satisfaction to know that the client is happy and content with what I have done.
And Wairimu says this is just the beginning. She plans to grow her business throughout the region. Mohammed Yusuf for VOA News, Nairobi.
Really impressive there. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, yoga fans take to the air. We'll be right back. Oh, man.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines.
In Somalia, an al-Shabaab suicide bomber rams a vehicle loaded with explosives into an African Union military base in the central part of the country. In Zimbabwe, United States dollar denominations are disappearing from circulation, showing deepening economic issues in the country. In Uganda, police arrest 2 people trying to enter the U.S. embassy in the capital, Kampala, while participating in a demonstration supporting U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump. In France, Pascal Simbikangwa appears in court to face prosecutors' appeal for a harsher sentence than the 25 years for his part in Rwanda's 1994 genocide. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Haiti Adams-Fitzpatrick. Yogis, nerds and designers, listen up. Here's what's trending. Although yoga is an ancient practice, its fans continue to innovate. At the Yoga Show in London, you can now experience aerial yoga. The hammock-like swings allow yoga practitioners to perfect more complex poses they would not normally attempt without a swing. The support provided by the hammock means even people who might struggle in a regular class can now give some of the more difficult positions a try. The Yoga Show is the largest gathering of its kind in Europe and features more than 100 exhibitors. To South Asia now, and at Comic-Con India, being a nerd is actually a very cool thing. Masks, face paint and costumes are in great supply to help you transform into your favorite fantasy character, from the Mad Hatter to just about any superhero. While the Indian comic book scene is still in its beginning stages, more and more titles are now being launched. 12 new Indian comics were unveiled at the show. Some highlight topical issues in Indian society, including violence against women. And finally, cutting-edge design and innovation from across Europe and the Middle East are on show at the Dubai Design Week. One of the biggest projects this year focuses on regional designers. Meanwhile, the Global Grad Show features cutting-edge designs by students from around the world. On display are a variety of innovative inventions, from a programmable smart socket for amputees that allows people to customize their prosthetic limbs to a superpower glove that takes energy in its raw form and gives you new abilities, such as powering devices or using that energy for sculpting or welding. And that is what is trending today. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, Haiti, thank you very much. And that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. Now for more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings, Today Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words.
This word deals with legal issues and travel.
Extradited.
Security officials say many young militants are inspired by Muslim cleric Abu Qatada, who was extradited from Britain last year. Jordan's postponed his trial on charges of plotting to attack tourists at New Year celebrations in 2000, but previously convicted him for conspiring to attack U.S. targets in Jordan.
Extradited means to move a prisoner between two countries. Sometimes a person commits a crime in one country and escapes to another.
If the person is found, police can send him back to the country where he committed the crime, and he could face a trial. Now, when you hear the word extradited, you will know what this news word means.